the passage of time really gets you sometimes, right? It's been 20 years since the PlayStation Portable launched in PAL regions, and I can still remember the off-the-cuff decision I made on launch day to try and pick one up while I was heading into work. For the next few years, it was quite the trusty travelling companion, not only because of its great selection of games, but also because of its multimedia capabilities. It was a device that truly felt like a step towards the future. So I wanted to mark the occasion, but as you'd expect, in a way that isn't just about nostalgic navel-gazing, which means it's time to go and celebrate some games. Some games I just think are neat. Some of these are personal favourites, and others gems which offer interesting things and mechanics and really aren't covered all that much. Speaking of favourites, it's only fair to open up with one of those, so let's go and get it done and dusted with Ace Combat X: Skies of Deception, developed by Project Aces and Access Games and published by Bandai Namco in 2006. I'm not going to fully recant things here, as I covered it previously a long time ago here, but this focuses on a conflict between the nation of Lysath, who have invaded their neighbour, the country of Aurelia. As one of the lone surviving members of the Aurelian Air Force, it's up to you to undergo a bunch of missions to stop the Lysathian threat and end this war. Though channeling a lot from its PS2 counterparts, Ace Combat X introduces several cool features to the series. The first is the ability to tune some of the aircraft by buying parts. Specifically, these are the fictional aircraft in the game's rosters, rather than the licensed ones, and they improve various performance and weapons abilities. The other comes in the form of the non-linear mission progression. Unlike those PS2 games, there are sections here where you're going to need to pick which assignment you want to tackle next, with consequences for later ones based on your choice. It's a great way to make things dynamic when you come back for a later play of the game. When you've taken to the air, Ace Combat X does a lot to show you that, yes, this is Ace Combat in the palm of your hand. The physics feel right, even if simplified, and the HUD shows the same details too. So the action just feels spot on. The missions lack the scale that you saw in some of the PS2 games, but honestly, as a game that's designed to be played on the go, I don't think that's really a bad thing at all. That is kind of why Ace Combat X is such a quintessential PSP game, because it delivers on bringing the experience that you got playing those PS2 games. But now you can play it on the go, and there aren't any real sacrifices made to the experience. Now, for as much as I love this one, it's a bit of a shame that the second Ace Combat game, Ace Combat Joy to Soul, was focused more about multiplayer than single player, and isn't really as good. And it doesn't help that that went for the real world rather than the strange real world the games are known for. I find some of the more interesting games out there are those which take a simple concept and add a twist, making for some real fun results. Now, this is certainly the case with Taito's Exit, which hit the PSP in 2005. It has you playing as Mr. Esk. Mr. ESC, or is that Mr. Escape? I think I like that better. No matter how it's said, they're an escape artist who's tasked with saving people from buildings in various states of trouble. That trouble, of course, can mean many things. Fires running rampant, floors that can only take so much weight, and more. The people you need to save in each level can introduce challenges too. Whether it's kids who need assistance to get over obstacles, or those who are hurt or injured, needing to be carried to the level exit. Each level needs you to plan your actions, and you're also going to need to find and use tools to clear obstacles and hazards too. Of course, you've got to juggle how you use these, as you can only hold one of them at a time. It's also worth noting that Mr. Escape is on the clock, so you need to be quick and precise with how you do things, even if he walks a little slowly. You'll also find there's a need to coordinate actions as well. Sometimes, you're going to need to use the folks you're rescuing to perform tasks to help clear the way. The interface to this might be a little clumsy when you first start using it, but after a few plays, I did find it became second nature and worked pretty well. As with any good puzzle game, The difficulty slowly ramps up, with new tricks and traps introduced as you go along. All of this is presented in a package which offers a very distinct visual style and flair. And all of this is also helped by the characterizations from Mr. Escape's thoughts prior to starting a level. He might be a bit of a hero, but he's certainly no stealth. Not at all. Exit is a game that feels really perfect for enjoying on the go. It's got a whoppingly huge number of levels, and those levels don't take you too long to play through. They will just challenge you and require a few tries to nut them out. Plus, like any good puzzle game, there is a reason to go back and replay them after you've beaten them. So you can see if you can do better next time when you've got a bit more experience of escaping under your belt.
Anybody there?
This next one might strike a little point of confusion, as it's Space Year 25. As I'm recording this, we've just gotten a wonderful Gradius pack from the folks over at M2. But 2006's Gradius Collection offers some neat features which distinguish it from this more recent pack. Firstly are the games. Joining the arcade versions of Gradius, Gradius 2 and Gradius 3 is Gradius 4, the final arcade release in the series. The big selling point though comes in the form of Gradius Gaiden, a Japanese PlayStation exclusive which was made available to Western audiences for the very first time in this pack. Honestly, Gaiden is the absolute standout of the games included here, as it offers a more reasonable difficulty compared to its arcade counterparts, and their crushingly tough difficulty levels. Thankfully, Gradius Collection includes plenty of options to help balance that challenge a bit. You can increase the number of lives you start with, you can adjust the hitbox size, and other such details. So you can try and tame the earlier games somewhat, and I gotta admit, when I was grabbing footage for this video, I managed to reach the 4th stage of the original Gradius. I've never done that before, whether playing the arcade version in MAME or in other collections. So if that's not a reason to want to try this one out, then I don't know what else can convince you. Besides these 5 games though, there really isn't much more to the collection, but I guess that was par for the course in 2006. It doesn't mean the collection is just about the games though, as you do get the soundtracks for each of them, available to listen with an internal music player, and the introductory cutscenes for Gradius Gaiden, plus those of the Gradius 1 and 2, along with the Gradius 3 and 4 collections, can also be viewed as well. Nice little bonus that. Again, you might feel this one is redundant, but for me, I like to believe there's still value in celebrating how we saw these older game collections. Just because there's a more recent one down the line, doesn't mean these old ones are obsolete. Especially when these collections, they give us a chance to try out things we never would have gotten otherwise. This has been the only way officially that Gaiden has been made available to us in the West, and that makes it stand out pretty much. I don't know if we're going to see a second modern collection that'll include it, so savour this one. Now, it's worth noting, Konami released 2 other series collections along the lines of this, but those were both only Japan only. There was Salamander Portable, which covered Salamander and the Life Force games, and Parodius Portable, which did the same for Konami's Cute 'em Up series. Again, those were Japan only, so you're going to have to hunt down those UMDs on import if you want them. But Gradius Collection is still a collection that is well worth your time playing, and worth checking out. One of the common complaints levelled at the PSP hardware was that it only offered a single analog stick, or nub, making it unsuitable for the growing collection of first-person shooters coming to console hardware. There were plenty of attempts to try and shoehorn these games onto the system, but the results honestly never felt great. Guerrilla's Killzone Liberation is a great example of taking a game that could probably have been done as a first-person shooter and reworking it for play on the PSP, ditching that first-person view, adding an overhead view, and making it feel far more optimal to play as a result. It gives you a game which is something that offers the tension that you get in a first-person shooter, but it just works far better with the limited controls of the PSP hardware. That tension is really important because you can't go in guns blazing with Liberation. You're going to get slaughtered otherwise. You have to learn to take cover and time your shots to take out those enemies without incurring too much damage yourself. Now, most of the game is going to have you fighting on your lonesome, though some missions will give you a support character, letting you issue orders and get some backup when things start getting tight. An element that makes it stand out is its upgrade system. Prior to deploying on a mission, you could buy upgrades for both your weapons and secondary abilities. The money for these can be obtained by carefully searching each map for secret caches of money. It gives you a reason to do some exploring when out in the field, rather than just running forward towards your next target, your next objective, or whatever lies ahead. You'll also have to find supply caches in these levels, and they'll contain useful supplies, whether it's regaining health or resurrecting support characters, ammo, or secondary weapons like grenades and explosives. The former is great for clearing out enemies in hard-to-reach places, while the latter is usually needed to blow your way through some blocked emplacements or doors. All of this makes for a game which is ideal for portable play. Being able to dive in, fight through a mission, which still offers plenty of tension, but isn't necessarily long to play through, is wonderful. Plus, the shifting perspective makes for a game with fair controls and isn't going to get you bogged down in frustration, as most attempts at FPSs did. Killzone Liberation is a game that is very unique on a system which is filled with plenty of attempts to do the same that don't quite make the mark of my. It's definitely go check it out. I don't really do cute or bright things, so LocoRoco is a surprising pick for me in this video, but its puzzling about happens to be so darn unique that it managed to win me over. The LocoRoco are inhabitants of a far-off world threatened by the Moja troop, who arrive on a crashed meteor, only to start trying to gobble them all up. You've got to guide the LocoRoco home on each stage, firstly locating him, while avoiding the traps and pitfalls that stand between you and home at the end. What LocoRoco really stands out is in the controls. It's played primarily using the L and R shoulder buttons on the system, with which you'll tilt the screen, letting them roll about the place, collecting flowers and stuff. The berries are the most important thing to find, as it'll increase the number of LocoRoco in the pack. Each level contains 20 that you need to find in order to truly win it. Of course, as you collect more, your main LocoRoco grows in size, and this becomes a bit of a challenge as it also introduces some of the uniqueness. Sometimes you'll find a gap that you can't squeeze through, and if you tap the circle button, the LocoRoco will split up to a pack, and then you can hold it down and they'll rejoin into their gestalt. When you need that extra mass, it's perfect for that in order to get through certain tricks and traps. The overall vibe of LocoRoco might lead you to thinking that it's going to be pretty chill, but not at all. It's anything but that. Some of the puzzling through levels can get pretty gnarly when you've made it a few stages in, especially if your completionist part of your brain is activated and you just have to find every single one of them. You can't finish a level without finding all of them. And I really adore the visual style here. Yeah, I know what I said earlier about the cute thing, I know. But the way everything squishes and stretches as you move about, it really contrasts with so much from what you saw with other games at the time. It just makes this game feel alive in ways that I don't think I remember seeing at the time. In fact, I don't think it was alive in a way that you wouldn't see till indie started trying to do similar things a few years later. LocoRoco's puzzling is incredibly unique. Even amongst the games I've already covered in this video and will feature later on, it stands out oh so much, and its simplified control scheme really makes it easy to pick up, but believe me, makes it oh so tough to master. The maxim of a very, very special game indeed. Every good system needs a puzzle game to really define them as a successful platform. While there's no combination of system and game that defines a legend, the way Tetris defined the Game Boy, I feel Q Entertainment's Lumines comes damn close for making the PSP one of those kinds of platforms. Lumines is a block matching puzzle. Pieces drop from the top of the playfield and you'll guide them into place. When you make a 2x2 square featuring tiles of the same colour, a match will be made, but they won't instantly disappear. Instead, the scanning bar, for want of a better term, will erase them as it passes over. The more of these combinations that are cleared when it passes over the level, the more points you'll score. Of course, as those blocks get removed, those above them will fall down, and it'll give you a chance at chain reactions for the next pass. The challenge here is really about keeping control of the board, as the assortments of block arrangements can lead you into getting trapped fairly quickly if you don't think fast. And that'll end your run once the board is filled up to the point where you can't drop any more tiles into it. What Lumines is most defined by for me is the soundtrack. Each set of levels has its own unique song and theme, which gives you a reason to want to push further and further in to unlock those higher levels. Though admittedly, if you're like me, you're going to be challenged to push beyond the first few of them. But it's a challenge that's well worth taking up, learning to master the game and seeing just how many you can unlock with play over time. Admittedly, compared to some of the other games I am featuring in this video, Lumines may not have the depth of gameplay features, outside of its various challenge modes and time attack modes, but the draw, like with any good puzzler, is about mastering the tricks of block placement to maximize those points. It's really about learning how to use the patterns that it generates, that it throws at you to your advantage in order to do that, and maintain control of the board for as long as possible. Now for me, that is what makes Lumines such an essential part of the PlayStation Portables library, especially for a game that basically came out at system launch. A solid portion of the PlayStation Portables library was built up of portable spin-offs to console games, typically from the PS2. Motorstorm Arctic Edge bucks that trend by being a portable spin-off of a PS3 game instead. It takes the high-octane extreme racing thrills of Motorstorm and Pacific Rift and transplants them into the snow, with the mountainous terrain serving as a handy hardware restriction to avoid the wide open terrains featured in those PS3 games. Does it make for worse racing? Not at all. In fact, it results in some tricky navigation as you learn these tracks and the multiple routes available on them. Differing paths suit different vehicle types, placing some weight on your vehicle choice prior to starting an event. These events aren't just about being the first to the finish line. Some will have you racing through checkpoints, aiming to finish your run with as much time remaining as possible. Others have you racing rivals to a points target, and your position controls how fast you're going to accumulate those points. Other races bring complications into the mix by forcing you to use a specific vehicle type, and only that type. I found that offered a little spice in forcing you to learn not just how to handle those vehicles, but force you to also learn those alternate routes on the tracks. As for the racing, the physics are simplified, yes, but I find this benefits the game as it adds an arcade edge to the vehicle control, resulting in faster gameplay. And that's perfect for when you've only got a small time for a session, a chance to run a brief race whilst you're out and about. I'm also a fan of the boost system. While its use is unlimited, you do need to manage your temperature. Otherwise, you'll explode from overuse, so you have to manage it. When to use it, when to let it cool down, especially when you find bodies of water or some real snowy areas that will cool it down faster. It makes it a tactical benefit to control. You don't just want to hold that boost button down all the time, but you want to save it for the right moments when you can absolutely get ahead of the competition. Motorstorm Arctic Edge nails the arcade racing feel, which, considering how late a release this was, 2009, the genre had started to fade around that time, and stuff on the system was getting a little stale. So it manages to be really fresh, really thrilling and challenging in all the right ways, and it makes for a bright way for this system to sort of wind down in its last few years. Mini-game players have had the urge, I'm sure, to hack and slash their way through waves of monsters, satiating that need to earn shiny loot and complete random quests for strangers. Well, Untold Legends Brotherhood of the Blade is a game that could certainly satisfy that need for you, especially as action RPGs in this particular style weren't really all that common on portable systems back then. As a guardian of the city of Avon, it's up to you to bring an end to the evil threatening the town. Which you should expect, being the town's appointed guardian, of course. When starting a new adventure, your first choice is which character you want to play as. Which class, really. This depends on your playstyle more than anything. Do you want to hit things close up with an axe or sword? Take them out from a distance with arrows? Or blast them with a spot of magic? This also serves as a nice reason to replay the game once you've beaten it, just so you can see how things fare with a different character class. Of course, you're primarily going to be spending your time alternating between exploring the town of Avon and diving underground to various places to wipe out nasties from these sites. What impresses me with Untold Legends is its 3D camera. You could rotate it about and zoom in and out, which lets you get up and close to the action whilst taking out monsters. I will admit though, I wish I was able to pull it out just that bit further, as sometimes when entering a room, you might not be able to see everything that threatens you until you've gotten some way in and taken a chunk of damage in the process. Along the way, you're going to be scavenging loot, whether it's from slain enemies or from the chests and pots you'll find lying about the place. Along with the obligatory gold, you'll also find weapons, armor and various items. Both weapons and armor are class specific, so you may find ones that you won't be able to use. Thankfully though, you can sell them off when you're back in town at the stores and use the gold earned from doing so to buy upgrades that you can use. I'll admit, it's not the most in-depth RPG you're going to find on the PSP, and I think there are some action RPGs that do things a lot better, but they're a little more well-known, so you know, whatever. But I feel Untold Legends Brotherhood of the Blade happens to be a great introductory experience, especially if you want something to play on the go, where it's easy to take a pause and have a chill when things do get busy. You know, you are playing these games for small bursts, at least that's how they were intended. And now, it's the very last pick. As always, I like to make these videos and organise them alphabetically. I think it, keeps things a little consistent, a little more, lack of surprises, or more surprises, I don't know. But it so happens to be Wipeout Pure. And Wipeout Pure was the game I originally picked up when I got my PSP on launch day. So it's one that sits in my heart quite a bit. Now, Wipeout Pure might just happen to be another installment in the Studio Liverpool Psygnosis sci-fi racing series, but it was one that gave it a gigantic shot in the arm on release by pairing things back to a more pure, get it, version of the formula, aiming to be more like those earlier PS1 entries, the original Wipeout in 2097, or XL if you're in the States. What this results in is some breathtaking courses to race on, offering plenty of thrills, loops, and even split paths to negotiate. Along the way, you need to hit those boost pads to keep your speed up, especially as you reach the faster leagues, as your rivals really offer plenty of challenge, and you'll need to be as fast as you can to keep up with them to win those championships. As always, as you expect for the series, weapons play as much of a part as ever. You'll pick them up from the other pads. They're the ones that will cycle colours. They're like a cross instead of the chevrons for the boosts, and you'll get items for both offensive and defensive use. The offensive ones, which start with rockets, lock-on missiles, and the mighty Quake, amongst others, can knock out or destroy rivals, while those defensive ones, a temporary shield, the autopilot, can help you give a little boost in survivability as the proceedings carry on. Both you and your rivals, of course, have a limited supply of energy, and should anyone run out of it, they'll blow up and be eliminated. Though of course you can restore energy by reclaiming weapons you don't need. Sometimes, it's just not necessary to carry a set of rockets if you're in the lead after all. It's something that helps you survive those later races too. A welcome addition is Zone Mode. This has you running solo races on a special course where your craft is constantly accelerating and getting faster. The goal is to survive as long as you can before you run out of energy, and you'll lose that by hitting the walls. Wipeout Pure really breathed a lot of life back into the series, and though it's got a small set of tracks out of the box, it's a game that pioneered downloadable track packs, which were thankfully free of charge at this point when it came out. so they're still easy to obtain in this day and age if you want to play it. It is worth noting that of the 3 regions that the game was releasing, Japan, the US, Canada and Europe, the European release got the biggest variety of them. So if you're going to try and hunt this game down to play, you want the disc, definitely try and get that version down. It's just there's a bit more variety and packs on offer there. Now that is that. Just a small pick of games on the PlayStation Portal that I just think are neat. Putting this selection together was actually tougher than I thought when I started out thinking about it. I didn't want this video to just be about my favourite games on the machine. And I'm sure some might be disappointed that I didn't touch on a few essential games out there. I mean, honestly, I could think of a bunch just off the top of my head that I would like to have talked about. And in earlier versions of the list, I actually had them on there. The thing is though, I love putting these videos together as a way to force me to go back to the games in my collection. All the games that are featured here are ones I do own on disc. I bought them back in the day, I've still kept my collection. And explored to varying degrees back then, and it's been great to come back to some of them and explore them again. Now I also wanted to keep things to purely games that came out on UMD. If only because, despite there being some great download titles released over the years in the latter portion of the machine's life, they are a bit of a pain to try if you want to keep things legit. That is honestly a crying shame to me that a good chunk of the library is not really accessible unless you go down the modified console route. I can't condone your actions with that, but your mileage may vary. On the upside, some of these games are actually playable on modern PlayStations. They're part of one of the higher tiers of a PlayStation Plus subscription. Some of them. Now it's also worth mentioning that if you don't have that subscription, you can buy them standalone. In Australia, they're $15 per game, which depending on your thing may be a bit higher, a bit low. But the emulation of them is pretty solid. I have bought a couple to try and explore, and it works pretty well. The range is small, but it's still kind of neat to see the PSP get a little love like this. A couple of games have even gotten the remastered treatment too. So there are options out there. If you have been inspired by this video to do some diving of your own into the library of the PSP. It's a system that is more than just worth hacking to run emulators or junk on, as there are so many great games released for it that are worth checking out and playing. Now, I'm sure people get tired of me banging on about it, but it's important to be able to look at these games away from the nostalgic gazes you have for them, and appreciate them for what they are with modern eyes. It's not just about playing them when they came out, it's appreciating them as they are today. I found that I can love them even more that way. And if you're still here watching this video, I hope that you happen to feel the same. Now with all that though, it is time to put this one to sleep. And so all I'm going to say to that is to just thank you all very much for watching.